Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. I have a return guest on. Her name is Penny L.A. Shepard. She was last on the show August 23rd, 2022, Season 3, Episode 92, where we spoke out on the importance of doing your own research on the deep state and the legal arena. But today we're going to talk about repressed memories and the false memory syndrome. And I was just telling Penny that I really at first never believed in repressed memories until one day it happened to me. So I welcome you to the show, Penny. How are you?
You. Really good. I was just looking that up. So in psychology, false memory syndrome, which is FMS, because we do acronyms on everything, describes a condition in which a person's identity and relationships are affected by false memories, recollections that are factually incorrect yet strongly believed. Peter, it looks like Freud, but it's not. Frey, so fried, which would be
Mhm,
fried Freud, Freud when he was fried, because Freud was a
mhm,
cocaine addict, originated the term partly to explain what he said was a false accusation of sexually abuse made against him by his daughter Jennifer Fried, and
mhm,
his false, that's what it was. It was the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Okay, the FMSF subsequently popularized the concept, the principle that individuals can hold false memories and the role that outside influence can play in their formation is widely accepted by scientists. However, FMS or false memory syndrome is not recognized as a psychiatric illness in any medical manuals, including the ICD-10 or the DSM-5. False memory syndrome may be the result of recovered memory therapy, which they're saying that the therapist could actually, using hypnosis, put false memories in you which did not exist, which describes a range of therapy methods that are prone to creating confabulations. The most influential figure in the genesis of the theory is psychologist Elizabeth Loftus, and I actually know someone who knows Elizabeth Loftus.
mhm.
She's much older, but she's still involved in the false memory and recovered memory therapy. So, the definition of false memory syndrome is a condition in which a person's identity and interpersonal relationships center on a memory of a traumatic experience that is objectively false, but that the person strongly believes occurred. The FMS concept is controversial, and the Diagnostical and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders does not include it. Paul R. McHugh, a member of the FMSF, stated that the term was not adopted into the fourth version of the manual due to the pertinent committee being headed by believers in recovered memories.
Mm,
So, recovered memories, in the McMartin case, they said that the children had false memories and that this was a satanic panic situation. It is my belief that that was an actual operation that happened. The children were talking about the fact that they did something like they played the naked movie star game, and there
mhm,
were indeed tunnels underneath the McMartin Center preschool center. And when I was doing some study on the McMartin case, and I also looked at Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire,
mhm,
and I looked at it, I was like, wow, this character that they developed looks exactly like Mrs. McMartin. Not only exactly, but they're wearing the same face, the same glasses, the same clothing that Mrs. McMartin wore. So when I was thinking about it in regards to the Illuminati, if the children were talking about a naked movie star game, right? And
mhm,
you had movie stars that were dressed, a man dressed as a woman or a woman dressed as a man, um, with masks on, the children wouldn't be able to identify them. They would just be able to
mhm,
say, we played a naked movie star game. And in fact, were they actually being satanically ritually abused by actual movie stars who knew about that daycare center? Were these children being taken through the tunnels? Ted
mhm,
Gunderson reported on this, which I also
Mhm.
reported on Ted Gunderson because I find that there are some bad things that I found out about Ted Gunderson. And I'm always willing to research and review and say, these are based upon my findings at the present juncture. If there's
Mhm.
any, more evidence that refutes what I have found, I'm more than happy to reassemble and
Mhm.
retake a look at it. But at this juncture, I don't believe that. I believe Ted was a double agent. I believe that he was working, in fact, with Michael Aquino. There were stories with Ed Opperman in which he said that during the AOL days, which I don't know if you've got kids watching this or not that don't
No,
understand
no.
what AOL was, but AOL was a precursor when we just started getting the internet, when the actual non-military became having access to the internet. AOL was one of those companies that came up that you could actually get online with I don't was it a modem? I don't remember, but you could
Yeah.
get you could get online and you could communicate with people through text, etc. This was the
Mhm.
precursor to what we now know as like instant messenger, etc.
Mhm.
It was something like that. So in those AOL days, Ed Opperman had said that he knew Gunderson, who had left the FBI. He wanted to be head of the FBI, but I don't know what they had on him because he quit and
Mm.
uh and he didn't go for the FBI, but then he became a PI. This is according to Ed Opperman, who said he knew him. He said he was doing a Lonely Hearts Club thing in which he was couch surfing, staying on the living on the couches of various women. One of them was a woman who was in the her child was in the McMartin case, and
Mm.
she said that she gave him money to investigate this, where he said he, used his own funds, his life savings. So if that was true, I don't know, but I'm just going to give you both sides of it. And she said she funded him for his mission to look for those tunnels underneath the McMartin preschool. Is it possible that he actually took place in some of those satanic ceremonies? Because it is said that he married Diane Rivley, who was the widow, she common law wife of Anton LaVey, who wrote the Satanic Bible. And the woman with the McMartin case with the child said that he was talking to Michael Aquino, his friend, on a daily basis. So when you see him in Oprah pretending like he's his enemy, is he in fact running both sides of the equation and he's actually
Mhm.
friends with him? Is it possible also that he's friends with him to glean intel? Or is it possible that he's actually friends with him because he is a Satanist? Why would you marry Anton LaVey's widow? Or, why would you do that? And then I have, members of the family that said, well, he thought that she was Christian. And I think that's just the most poppycock thing I've ever heard in my
Mhm.
life. There's no way that a woman that was the editor of the Satanic Bible and was eating children and drinking blood, which she said she was eating human flesh.
Yeah.
Um, I don't foresee that individual coming over to the light side, but that's just me. I could be
Mhm.
wrong. So the false memory syndrome in regards to this particular case makes sense if you look at the interspersing between the military industrial complex and what I term the military industrial entertainment complex, because they're synonymous with one another. One cannot work without the other. The entertainment aspect is espionage, pornography, sexpionage. It provides a whole wide variety of methodologies to disseminate information, satanic messages through films, through theatrical production, through
Mhm.
movies, and then also it enables people that have garnered the Illuminati steps, have risen up the ladder to continue the perpetration of evil deeds under the guise that they now become the idols, the false idols, replacing Jesus and God, because you're literally idolizing these people and you're
Mhm.
giving them your love, your devotion,
Mhm.
your finances, you're supporting their endeavors, and you don't actually know who these people are. What you see is you see people, you see a side of them that they present. So an actor will act a part in a movie, but he's not that hero. He is
Mhm.
a totally different entity that you do not know.
Mhm.
I did some reports on Johnny Depp regarding that. Johnny Depp's best friend, Marilyn Manson, his daughter's godfather. You know, I believe in that Depp trial with Amber Heard. They're both equally fatuous and
Mm.
equally um Hollywood entities. So I don't see either as, you know, if Johnny beat her, which I believe he did. He's been a drunkard for a very long time, and also experimented with, you know, very hard drugs. And I don't see that he's, you know, changed much.
Mhm.
You know, you'd heard about his drug use when he was on trial. So let's go back to the false memory syndrome thing again. So I believe that that when the children were talking about the movie star, naked movie star game, that is it possible that if Robin Williams was involved with that, and he's involved in Hollywood with a homage to McMartin, what he's saying is that in if you dispel and you say that these children were all lying, they all had false memories, and this is a precedent case. The McMartin case was a precedent case. If you dispel the truth of what they were trying to say and you just say, well, it's satanic panic and it's just all BS, right?
Mhm.
Then that you take that precedent case. If you have a shadow of a doubt in a court case, then you are compelled to acquit because you
Mhm.
have a shadow of a doubt. So Mrs. Doubtfire, right?
Mhm.
Now you have no if you have a doubt, then you have to go with the precedent case, which said that those children were all lying and it was all false memories. That is a precedent case which was set by the McMartin case, hence Mrs. Doubt. If you have a shadow of a doubt, doubt fire. Okay. And fire is also representative of Satan. Okay. Hell, flames of hell will hit you. So when these children came forth with their allegations, I don't know if the establishment of the false memory syndrome foundation occurred then, if that's when they established it. I know now that I think it was in 2021 that let me see when it says that they established it, but in 2021 I believe they are no longer in existence. Psychiatric controversy concerning recovered memories. In psychiatry, confabulation is a memory error defined as the production of fabricated, distorted, or misinterpreted memories about oneself or the world. Now, what if the memories that you actually had under MK Ultra, the memories that you thought, the life that you thought that you had, what if all those are a lie? And then you start recovering memories of what actually did happen, which is what happened to me in my life at
Mhm.
58 when I had no idea. I'm 64 now. At 58, when I had no idea that I was even MK Ultra or
Mhm.
involved in any of these covert activities as a child because I had my memory wiped over and over and over again. And,
Mhm.
you know, what memories do they put in there? They sometimes they don't put any memories in there. There are big honking spaces in your memory and
Mhm.
years of your life that you can't remember because you were satanically ritually abused. You were taken to maybe you were drugged with scopolamine,
Mhm.
which is a zombie drug, or my mom was a nurse, so she for sure knew how to titrate so that you wouldn't
Mhm.
die. And, you know, looking back
Mhm.
now, trying to piece together some of those years that I was literally missing, I'm finding these memories, which I know these memories are real memories of events that actually happened. Now, if you go to a traditional psychiatrist, he will say, no, this is confabulation. And,
Mhm.
you know, and then what psychotherapists do, which I look at the term psychotherapist because I don't trust anybody because I was married to
Mhm.
my husband who had his MA in psychiatry. He ran his parents' psychiatric office. They were in the business for 38 years, and I is my belief that they actually researched and studied under Jolie West, who was an MK Ultra handler. He killed an elephant with LSD. He worked with Sidney
Uh-huh.
Gottlieb and with Alan Dulles, who was head of the CIA. And Sidney Gottlieb was like biowarfare. They used him to he was going to create some kind of a biological uh warfare object, neurological
Mhm.
warfare to like they called it whacking the beard, killing
Mhm.
Castro, or even
Mhm.
they even entertained, you know, something to make his beard fall out that would be like a ha ha and it would
Uh-huh.
embarrass him. They're just really sick that way.
Yeah.
So it's a psychotherapist, and if you look at the word, it's psycho the rapists. tried to reveal repressed memories in mental therapy patients through hypnosis, guided imagery, dream interpretation, narcoanalysis in the 1980s. So we're going back to the 80s, but I think this actually goes way, way, way back to Egyptian
Mhm.
times when people started, hypnotizing their slaves. They were enslaving people through hypnosis. The reasoning was that if abuse couldn't be remembered, then it needed to be recovered by a therapist. Now, many people do believe in this. For myself,
Mhm.
because of my interactions with some very evil doctors and therapists who I do not trust the psychiatric community whatsoever. And I do have my
Mhm.
master's degree in education and psychiatry.
Mhm.
Um, I was predisposed to not to do any of this and to try and figure it out on my own, which, if you're a strong enough individual, I feel that you can do that. However, if you are an individual who has multiple personality disorder or severe DID, dissociative identity disorder, I don't know what to suggest to you because I am
Mhm.
not a certified therapist and I'm not going to advise in any capacity. That's not what I do. I just tell
Mhm.
you how I started recovering some of my memories. The
Mhm.
reasoning was that if abuse couldn't be remembered, then it needed to be recovered by the therapist. This type of therapy became popular in the 1990s. Many victims don't remember their abuse, making
Mhm.
underlying phenomena of trauma-induced amnesia nonetheless legitimate. So,
Mhm.
in fact, are there women that are coming forth that are now starting to remember, hey, I think I was raped by my father when I was a child? Is that a legitimate facilitation of remembering, or is it a confabulation? Because the person at the very beginning of this who said that her father raped her, uh, he said his name was Peter J. Fried, said that it was a false accusation.
Mhm.
Was it? Or was Jennifer actually telling the truth?
Mhm.
I don't know what that case was. Human memory, evidence for false memories, they go into a whole thing. You can just look this up on Wiki. And I'm not saying believe everything on Wiki, vet
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
as well. So here we're talking about repressed memories. And Elizabeth Loftus, I think she was University of Irvine, the
Mhm.
individual that I know knows her and had tried to talk to her about some of these things. She has been used to counter claims of recovered memory in court. I don't know if she was one of the people on the McMartin case or not. As a matter of fact, I think when I researched her, I found out she was.
Mhm.
And she was a person who refuted recovered memory. She says it's resulted in stricter requirements for the use of recovered memories being used in trials, as
Mhm.
well as greater requirement for corroborating evidence. How can you corroborate evidence that happened when you were a child
Mhm.
and you're recovering this memory as an adult? Did you have pictures? No, right?
Mm-mm.
And
Mm-mm.
that's some of the things that they want, that they're trying to get you to. Do you have pictures when you were raped? No, I didn't have a camera in 1958,
Mhm.
when I was
Mhm.
1 year old. Um, so,
Mhm.
but they're requiring this in courts of law. In addition, some U.S. states no longer allow prosecution based on recovered memory testimony. A lot of times they say, "Were you hypnotized?" And if you were hypnotized, then that refutes it because then they can say in a court of law, "Well, you were hypnotized." And I think that was the case with Kathy O'Brien, in which her husband, he was trained in some mind control experiments, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted it to be a natural. It took many years of deprogram because she was one of the most severe cases. She said she was sold to Reagan by Michael Aquino. She was brought there to Reagan by Michael Aquino, and then that brings into purview my good friend Megan Walsh, who when she was 2 months old was presented to Reagan, and then look at the duplicity. Many people are like, "Oh, Reagan was a
Mhm.
great president." Look at the duplicity here, because while his wife Nancy was saying, "Just say no," she was a drug addict.
Mhm.
If you don't believe me, please research it and look it up. So, and they wanted to take her off the drugs, but they were afraid she'd die if they took her off of some of these drugs that she was on. So while she's being drugged up and saying, "Just say no" to the public, then her
Mhm.
husband was running Iran Contra, where they were shipping in drugs, copious amounts of drugs, which were murdering Americans by the
Mhm.
thousands, and doing drugs and weapon deals. But then Reagan says, "Oh, I didn't know." And then we also find out that there were children that were being sex trafficked and sold to the White House, and they were also through the Finders operation. They were being sold in the embassies. So there are literally like, bank accounts selling these kids that they were taking, which were very well known. And then we go to Johnny Gosh,
Mhm.
who we don't know if he's still alive or not. And there are allegations it was Paul Bonacci that said that he actually kidnapped him and then gave him to Michael Aquino, again brought into the purview. Michael Aquino is brought in
Mhm.
to sexually abuse the children, satanically ritually abuse them, and to train them and probably put demonic entities in them when they're in their dissociative identity state. So
Mhm.
Elizabeth Loftus has been used for counterclaims of recovered memory in court. And so we go into that court purview again, which is what you're talking about on Slam the Gavel, in which we have experts that are offering testimony which may not necessarily be true.
Mhm.
But they're stating that they're experts in the fields, and then you'll have a counter expert, which would counter what Elizabeth Loftus said. Supporters of recovered memories argue that there is overwhelming evidence that the mind is capable of repressing traumatic memories of child sexual abuse. Whitfield states that the false memory defense is seemingly sophisticated, but most contrived and often erroneous. Is it? Because I'm one of those people that started recovering memories. Now,
Mhm.
you can have anybody come into this conversation and say, well, those are confabulations and they didn't actually happen. And I'm going to say back to them, did you live my life?
Mhm.
And how are you going
Mhm.
to say what actually happened and what didn't? And the fact that I don't have any evidence or pictures uh, does not negate those things that I'm researching and that I'm finding to be true about my life.
Well, definitely. As I was telling you earlier, I really didn't believe in this repressed memories. I just thought, they're false accusations they were using in court types of things. And then, towards the end of my type of court issue, I woke up one morning and I sat up in bed and a voice says, "The patent. Don't you remember the patent?" And I'm going, "Oh, you ding dong. Why couldn't you have remembered this 4 years prior?" This would have saved me a lot of heartache. So what was coming up and why this happened was we were going into a support conference because he kept coming after me for child support. So what I did was remember this patent. I know that it had gone overseas and I know it had come back. Um, there's a place down south. Oh, I can't think of the company. I'll remember it at 3 in the morning, right? I'll call you up. But but what happened was I called Carnegie Library and I talked to the patent lady, and she found this patent within 15 minutes, which I was really surprised. Lockheed Martin, that's what I'm thinking was the company. Anyway, so I, you know, um, printed out all these copies on this patent. I sent them to my attorney. And she says, "Oh, go in there in that support conference. You can handle it. You've been a pro, say you can do this." And it's like I really wanted her there. You know how you have that gut instinct, and believe me, I wouldn't want to pay her the 2-hour drive back and forth, but I think it would have been worth it. So when we were talking about child support, I pulled out this patent paperwork and I kind of threw it on the table. And I said, "I need to see your 1044, 1099, and your W-2. My attorney wants to see it as well." So he would not provide it. And Oh, yeah, because I mean, yeah, in domestic relations, you really can do whatever you want. You really can. You can lie to them. You can say you were vice president. Then all of a sudden, now you're floor manager type of thing. Okay. So anyway, he refused to give me any of this information. So the conference officer had to get up and talk to her boss, came back down to see me, back to see us. And she said, sir, she's a pro se litigant. She is entitled to this information. To which he curled up in a ball and said, "No, no, she'll put it on social media." Like, "Really? I'm just gonna give it to my lawyer." And the thing is, I this went on twice. She had to get up twice more to talk to her boss about getting this information, which he did not provide. He just refused to provide it, ever. So, as it turned out, what he said as soon as I put all that on the table, he had said, "She doesn't have to pay child support on the last one, but I want her to pay the arrears faster." So I thought something's up, and that's why we need this information. So meanwhile, it got kind of quiet in there because we're just staring at him. And the conference officer looks at me and says, I know why you got your kids taken away from you. And I looked back at her and I smiled. And I said, yeah, through false accusations and lies and legal kidnapping. And then she said she just sat there staring at me, and I said, "You do know he is versing me?" And she's so stupid. She goes, "What does that mean?" I said, he's versing me." And she goes, "Oh." So I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, for her to come out with this comment, obviously she's friends with his wife who works in this courthouse. It's not, not hard to figure out. But I didn't know what they were gonna do with this patent. As it turns out, domestic relations doesn't do anything with they don't pursue it, they do nothing. There's no justice, and we don't know what that patent's worth. All I knew was that it's an international patent, and it went overseas and spent a year, and then it came back over to the United States and spent quite some time. And it was up for renewal, I believe, last year. So whether they renewed it or not, I don't know how much money it made. So, there again, that is a lie by omission. He did not tell domestic relations everything in the very beginning of 2015. I don't know what you do with that. Do you let it go? I guess you have to because there's so much corruption. It is just overwhelming. But that's my repressed memory story,
Well, that's probably just one of many repressed
right?
memories that you haven't actually examined. I mean, I'm literally on a quest to find out all of the things that were done to me under MK Ultra that, when I found out that I was MK Ultra, I was 58. I mean,
Mm,
I likened it. I say, I was married to a Van Hooser. I did a Rip Van Winkle
mhm,
for 58 years.
mm,
And then I was declared enemy of the state under James Clapper and then held in a crazy house for another year because of who I am, because of who my family is. And that was 60 years a slave, 60
mm,
years that I was under MK Ultra. And then when I start breaking it, when I'm 58, a lot of people break it when they're in their 30s.
mhm,
But I
mhm,
had some very significant handlers. I believe that my first handler is the illegitimate son of Albert Spears.
mhm,
Um, and then I asked my agent, who I found out is my brother from my first husband, um, why he looked like Joseph Mengele, why I look like Irene Schoenbein, who married
mhm,
Joseph Mengele, why my murdered brother David, who wrote an unpublished book entitled The Whistleblower about Bush, the Vatican, and My Evil Family, why he looked like Rolf, their
mm,
son. That would be Joseph Mengele and Irene Mengele. They had a son named Rolf. And every time I see
mm.
Rolf, I cry. Am I manifesting? Am I making these memories up? I say no. I say that I'm actually recovering the memories that were taken from me in covert CIA projects, that I was drugged, electroshocked, chained,
Mm.
caged, erased, raped over and over again. And you know, these things are making sense now when I look back and I see some of the things that my mother did. My sister, I call her my sister, she's my best friend, Susie. She uncovered my mother was gay. So of course that was a lie until I was 18. Then I found out that my mom was gay and that the person that moved in was, I called her my aunt. She was actually my mother's lover. And so when I find this out like 30, 40 years later, I'm researching and I find out that there were these two sisters. I think they might have been called the Orr sisters.
Mm.
Another, the Orr, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
they were involved with Michael Aquino and their Illuminati witches, black artists involved in something like, have you ever seen the movie The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants?
I saw it a long time ago.
Right, so it's kinda like this, but it's like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Lesbians under Michael Aquino who were, reading, from the Book of Shadows and the Book of the Dead and
Mhm.
hypnotizing and, doing necromancy and,
Mm.
you know, satanic worship. And if you think that satanic worship couldn't be done and that without you knowing that you would remember these, that whole premise of it is under a hypnotic state. And then they carry that hypnotic state throughout your life. And some are so traumatized that they become multiple personality disorder or they
Mm.
become severe dissociative identity disorder. One is akin to the other. I don't know if there's a fine dividing line between the two, or if they took the DID and made it MPD, or if they took the MPD and made it DID. Okay, I'd have to go into the severity of both of the conditions because I also believe that the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Mental
Mhm.
Health was fabricated
Mhm.
because Donald Ewan Cameron, who was head of the World Psychological Association, was breaking minds under MK Ultra, ruining lives at the Allen Memorial Institute, head of the World Psychological Association, working with the APA, the ADA, the AMA, breaking minds, and then creating drugs to fix a malady that he created and calling it schizophrenia.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of people do not have much respect for the psychiatric society at all. Um,
The reason is why, because and I'm not saying that there aren't some very good people. I know Cisco Wheeler
mhm,
had said that without the help of a therapist, she would have never been able to sort her life out and to get things, to get the help that she needed. On my instance, Kathy O'Brien said she had a wonderful husband who initially, when I started researching, I thought he was a disinfo agent, he was a handler, he was just using her, whatever. Now, I don't believe that anymore. I've spoken with Kathy. I fell in love with her. She's a wonderful, wonderful, loving human being, considering everything that she went through. She
mm,
said that her husband was the love of her life and that he saved her. And so when you see that, there are good people out there. There
mhm,
are people that, yes, was he a handler? Yes. But did he handle her in the proper way to help her break free from the enslavement she was in and help her deprogram herself? Yes. And then they wrote several books together to enlighten a nation, in which she's still referred to as a conspiracy theorist, and that is incorrect. She is telling the truth of her life, and she has affected millions of people and helped millions of people who were unaware that there was such a thing called MK Ultra, which existed. And there are also many very close-minded individuals who still believe that in the church committee's results, in which they said that MK Ultra stopped. The church committee, by the way, was established by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers to quash what the covert actions were of the deep state. And when I say deep state, I mean the state that is underneath our actual government. So there are two ruling governments, one that we actually see, which is in the White House, and another which is actually ruling over those who are the elected officials or pre-selected officials that are governing the mental, capacity, MK ultraing the mental capacity of their subjects, which are you and I.
Mhm. Hmm. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, that's
It is, but you know, when you start going down a road of rabbit holes and
Mhm,
you realize I'm going to be digging my way to China, but hey, is China actually running the White House?
mhm,
Is the
mhm,
CCP running the White House? When you start going down one rabbit hole, it's going to take you to many, many levels. You're going to question everything. You're going to question the religions. You're going to question governments.
mhm,
You're going to question the Vatican. There are
mhm,
people that actually believe that the Vatican is a good entity and that the Pope is a representation of Jesus Christ on this planet. And I will wholeheartedly refute that to my dying day, that the
mhm,
Vatican is satanic and they are not the representative of Jesus Christ on this earth. As a matter of fact, it's my belief you don't need to go to a church to talk to God. He's not in a building of brick and mortar. You talk to him on a daily, ongoing basis. And I've been talking to God since I was a child, and he has saved my bacon, so to speak, a
mhm,
million times. I've
mhm,
died, I've been tortured, I've been raped, I've been enslaved. I knew when I was a child I was a slave. So, how does a child know that they're a slave? Because they're using me under MK Ultra. And then when I start looking at all of the things that happen and some of the things that I can remember, it's like when you recover one memory, why false memory syndrome is so important to making sure that you don't recover your memories is when you recover one memory, then another comes, and then another and
mhm,
another, and you're able to actually start unraveling a past that has been hidden from you. There's an individual who's a super soldier who I believe is still in a UK prison. I'm not sure,
mhm,
but that was the last that I heard. His name is James Cosbolt. James Cosbolt, Casbolt, wrote a book. It's a free PDF. It's called Agent Buried Alive. In
mhm,
there, he talks about how he was used in Project Mannequin. So he was born in 1976. I graduated high school from 1976. These projects are global. They're all over the world. My project was called Project Genesis. The sub project was called Eve, which is a cloning project, which goes back to the boys from Brazil, which is real. And I believe that there weren't just 20,000 babies that were made for the Reich. Those are on Lieberholden, which is there's a book about that. I believe that they have made millions of babies and made created genetic chimeras and anomalies, and have created what would be called xenotransplantation, which is a transplantation of genetic materials from one species to another. And that, if you look up xenotransplantation, you will see something like the pig heart goes into the human. But the advanced technology that we're speaking about is so advanced that they're literally doing what would be called recombinant DNA, and they're recombining DNA, which a normal scientist would say we don't have that capability. However, the advanced technology that we have, and even Kevin Shipp had spoken about it. He said he believed that there were two constitutions. He wasn't sure that this one constitution that we're aware of is even in operation. That there are, I've written a chapter on it, that there are the secret government, which the deep state is a mechanism of the secret government, and who in fact is running the secret government is another subject for another day, in which
mhm,
the people that I know believe that that secret government is actually run by an alien faction, which would mean extraterrestrial is extra terra. Terra is Earth, so be extra to Earth, maybe not indigenous to this planet. And then we have the actual hybrids, which have been created through genetic experimentation in deep underground military bases, aka DUMBs.
mhm,
And now let's go back to our original topic, which is regress memory. So once you start regaining some of these memories, you become a targeted individual. And then you have your MK Ultra doctors, which are in every hospital and university, which will refute what you're saying, but they know what you're talking about is true. They know that there is a secret government. Many of them are part of it. And there are others that absolutely don't know. It's like working for the
Mm.
CIA. Kevin Shipp worked for the CIA counterterrorism, and he believed in everything he was doing. He's a patriot, but then at one point he realized the CIA was trying to kill him, and he became a whistleblower. They were trying to kill him and his wife, put him in a house with black mold. They love killing you with black mold or with car accidents or with cancer, which can be injected into you, so that it
Mm.
looks like it's a natural death. And
Mhm.
the other thing that they like are the suicides, which are not in fact suicides. It's someone killing you. If you watch Red, it's a movie, and the red designation is about this guy who was a very good man. He worked for the CIA. He's played by Bruce Willis. And when he retires from the CIA, they stamp his folder red, which means retired, extremely dangerous, because of not just his knowledge of black ops and defense tactics and survival tactics, but also his knowledge of what the government is actually doing.
Mhm.
And so that in that movie, they show you one of the men who's contracted to kill him, and he is planting DNA. So when
Mhm.
they're asking you to take your DNA, or they're taking your children's DNA, and they're actually storing it somewhere, um, then he's planting DNA. He's talking to his wife on the phone saying, "Did you want 2% milk?" Or, and he's planting evidence, because they
Mhm.
plant evidence. They fabricate crime scenes. Okay.
Mhm.
And then there's a guy who's very wealthy, and he's got these wristbands on him, which are Velcro, so they don't leave any marks. And he's got him, to hang himself from the ceiling. He's on a chair, and the guy says to him, "Do you know who I am? I have money. I have money. I can help you." He says, "I know who you are." He kicks a chair out from under him. Guy allegedly he's committing suicide, right? And then
Mhm.
he takes the little restraints off of him, so there's no markings on it, and all the evidence is planted. If you don't think that's true, I think you actually need to research a little bit more, because I say the CIA leaves no footprints or DNA evidence at the crime scene but yours, which they planted.
Well, that goes back to when we were talking earlier, look what happened to Gary Webb. He was exposing all of this drugs coming in and out of the country, and they kinda swept it under the rug, and he lost his job, he lost everything, and then they said that, he had committed suicide 7 years to the day that he left his first job or was fired
Yeah.
from his first
He
job.
was he was killed, and I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
wasn't Gary Webb outing Iran Contra?
Yes, yes.
And, as we know now, Iran Contra was real.
Mhm,
But yet, the government will refute anything that you say, that the whistleblowers that are coming forth. I'm on a show, it's called Dark Outpost, with my very good friend, who I call my brother, David Zublik. And that is what we both have dedicated our lives to doing, is to showcasing people that have stories, that are whistleblowers. If you need to get in touch with me for any reason, I'm just going to put this out here. My You can contact me at my name, Penny, Penny, not Peggy, as one guest called me Peggy like 1,500 times.
oh,
um
no.
and then another one called me Pauline. I'm like, seriously? My name's right there. Can you not see it? Is it like mirrored or something? But so if you want to get in touch with me, it's Penny at darkoutpost.com. And then I take phone calls from people all over the world, but I will not take your call unless you text my phone, because I'm severely targeted. I have hits out on my life, and I won't take calls from anybody that I don't know. People are like, why? That's why. So
Mhm,
if you have anything that you'd like to say to me, you have memories that you're starting to recover, you're like, hey, am I MK Ultra? Because pretty much the whole world is MK Ultra, but there are severity in programs that
mhm,
go above the television and the Mockingbird media. If you have, if you're a targeted individual, you want
mhm,
verification that direct energy weapons exist, that you're being targeted by maybe 5G, that you're being targeted by your DNA, or that you're a heavy researcher, and you're like, hey, Benny, I got some stuff that I want to
mhm,
I
mhm.
want to tell you. Text my phone, and my phone number is 619 779-9771. Say who you are. Don't just text and say hi, because I will block your ass. Okay. Say who you are. And if you have any information for me, tell me what the information is. If you're looking for help, I do not offer, I have no means, no financial means to help anybody. I give you emotional support. And then I also will give you pointers to research, but I will not do your research for you. I'm an extremely busy individual. I will help you to try and point you to different avenues to complete your research. But your research, I didn't live your life. I can't do the research on your life. You lived your life. You need to recover your memories. I can just give you a methodology in which to do so. Again, I will say I'm not a lawyer. I am not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just an average person who is a researcher, who has a master's in education and a minor in psychology, but I am a darn good researcher. And maybe I can help you get some answers to some of the questions. So if some of these regressed memories are coming back, I don't advocate using psychiatrists or psychotherapists. I'm just saying, for me, that's my preference. Some people have had success in that manner. I'm not saying to do it or not to do it. I'm just saying my preference is, I believe that it can be done if you're integrated enough, that it can be done through your own research. That's what I'm saying. And so I put it incumbent upon you. There are many people that come to me, they're homeless. They don't have medical insurance. They're not going to go see a psychotherapist, or they're not going to go see a psychic, or somebody that's going to hypnotize them or regress them. My personal predilection is, do not undergo hypnosis. That's just me, because in fact, they can plant memories in you. And the MK Ultra doctors are triggering patients to go out and kill people. And they also, there's a Omega protocol in which, when you start recovering some of these memories, you become suicidal if you have DID, dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personality disorder. One personality does not want the personalities to be integrated, so it will become suicidal, and it will activate an Omega protocol, which is a suicidal ideations and suicidal thoughts to take your life. The other aspect of that is that you may, if you are a trained MK Ultra assassin, kill your therapist. I'm just giving you that warning ahead of time. Just be aware of that. That is an actual protocol. So those that are like, wow, I think I was used in not just SRA, but I think I was like, the government actually used me as an agent. And when I say I'm an agent, I go by Agent X11. So when I say I'm an agent, what I'm actually saying is, I was never hired by the FBI. I never drew a paycheck from the CIA. However, they use me, the deep state used me as a covert asset, and they also call assets agents sometimes. And also, I am, unfortunately, I'm not getting any money for this, I am the real 11 that's depicted in Netflix Stranger Things. I have some things that I've written about it, and I'm going to continue writing about it. The more that I can, can show you the 1,000 threads that say, oh yeah, for sure, that's you. I was married to Dr. Xenos. His name means stranger. Okay. I had a band named Stranger because I'm a singer. They called him Dr. X. Now, he wasn't a PhD, but they called him Dr. X, right? I was literally married to Dr. X. And I was literally Mrs. Stranger. And then I was born August 11th. My middle initial is L. They call her L. My name is Penny. And Penny in Greek actually means Madonna, but the AKA for Penny, which is short for Penelope, is L, E-L-L-E. The character's name is actually Jane Ives, as in Jane Doe from Ives. And I was raised in Ives Estates for 17 years. I went to Mady Ives Elementary School. I lived off Ives Dairy Road in North Miami Beach off the 95. The character is played by Millie Bobby Brown. My mother's name was Millie. My grandmother's name was Millie. I found out I have a brother named Bobby, and Brown is German for brawn, which is Eva
Mhm.
Braun married Hitler. So I found out my mother was actually a Hitler baby.
Hmm.
These are just some of the things. So I have a chapter. It's called The Green Mind Script, in which an individual from Canada said, I know that you're 11 from Stranger Things. I'd like to do some short documentary videos for 6 minutes. And I'm like, I cannot tell my story in
Mhm.
6 minutes. I could try, but
It's
nobody
hard.
is that
No.
good. Okay. Because
No.
the threads are I'm still picking them out. Somebody
Mhm.
said today on Dave's show, yes, you should have a show where Penny talks about her life and tells everything about it in one show in an hour or whatever. And I'm like, okay, number one, I'm still recovering memories, and
Mhm.
they're still running the series, right?
Mhm.
And so it's complex. It's very drawn out. And I also tell you, when you start this journey, this is a lifelong journey. It is not something you're like, okay, Irene, I spent 5 hours on it. I'm done. No.
Mhm.
If you really want to know and find out about this, is like a daily thing where you wake up in the morning and you start doing some research. If you go to work, you do your work, you come home, you research, and then when you start finding out, I don't watch television, but I do use movies for research and for memory retention, because as I've said before, we are like computers. So we store things in images. So
Mhm.
when you're watching a motion picture, which is pictures moving, you're going to start seeing pictures. Those pictures will elicit memories, and even
Mhm.
dialogue in these pictures will elicit a memory. Code words will elicit memories. You start and you stop these things. I tell everybody, watch these movies with the captions on. Start and stop them. Take
Mhm.
pictures. Start writing notes.
Mhm.
What elicit was in your mind. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. So when I left my husband in 2015, but I asked God, reveal myself to me. That is a very
Mhm.
potent prayer.
Mhm.
And God answers prayers. He says, knock and you shall find, seek and you shall find, right?
Mhm.
Knock on that door, ask the questions, talk to God, challenge God, because there is no challenge too big for God. And He will
Mhm.
give you those answers. He will give you those answers. If you get lost, look up at the street sign and see what it's saying. What are your thoughts at that time? Is he answering you?
Mhm.
Because he answers us in many ways. He answers us with a voice. And when you know that voice, you know that it's him. And when we're talking about this off camera, if God is telling you go kill somebody or go do something evil, that is not God. That would be a satanic
Mhm.
faction or a satanic voice that is giving you this information. God,
Mhm.
the creator, is a loving God who is a creator, not a destructor.
Mhm.
So and he's also not going to lie to you. So if the answer that you get is a lie, that's not God, because
Mhm.
God is a God of truth and justice and righteousness. So when I pray to that God, asking
Mhm.
for truth. And I've talked to that God since I was a child, since I was a baby. In the
Mhm.
Bible, it says he knew you when you were knit in your mother's womb.
Mhm.
So I've talked to this entity, and there's pastors that want to usurp that role of God as well. They want to say, no, listen to me. This is what God's saying. Really? Because, when I was in my mom's womb and he was talking to me, there was no pastors there saying, hey, read this passage from the Bible because I know what it means and you don't.
Mhm.
Count on your own relationship with God. Count
Mhm.
on that. God is not in a building of brick and mortar. He's here
Mhm.
constantly on a 24-hour basis. If you need to speak with God, I tell a story how I was with my agent and I was in a bathtub and I didn't know that he was my brother at the time. I was having an affair with him. Found out 30 years later that was my brother, and I just pretty much lost it. But I asked
Mhm.
God, um, reveal John to me. Okay. That was
Mhm.
like 30 years before my other thing. I say, reveal John to me. And the phone rang. Yes, there was a phone in the bathroom and it was like in the 90s. So I was shocked because I
Mhm.
had never gotten a phone call in the bathroom before.
Mhm.
And the phone rang and I was like, okay, when the phone rings in the bathroom in the 90s, you're going to answer it because you're like,
Mhm.
who, even if it's just room service or whatever, you're going to answer it because now you're curious. Well, I answered it after I asked God, reveal John to me, it was John.
Hmm.
And I said,
Mhm.
wow, I was just talking to God about you. I didn't know I had an 800 number. Guess what? We all have an 800 number.
Mhm.
Use it. Use it tonight. Use it right now. Test it. Ask for answers. Ask God, if you have questions right now in your life about the events that happen, say, God, reveal myself to me. That means reveal my past with no fear. Reveal my present with no fear. The answers will come, but the answers are going to require you to do research, and you will be guided to that research. And you will have people that come into your life, because God talks to us through people, that will actually say, hey, look at this, or look at this. The research, again, is incumbent upon you, but make that first step, make that connection. If you don't believe in God, but you believe in a source of
Mhm.
truth and justice and righteousness, talk to that source of truth and justice and righteousness. If you want answers from the converse, from the God of darkness, the government of darkness, or the evil ones, which is devil, the
Mhm.
of the evil ones, dame in Spanish means of or from the evil ones,
Mhm.
you'll get answers from the dark side too. So make a choice. Which side are you
Mhm.
on? Are you want to be on the dark side and become rich and famous, which will require you eventually to make some real sacrifices, and we're talking about satanic sacrifices?
Mhm.
Or are you on the side of justice, truth, and righteousness? And, my guy in the pocket has always been Jesus.
Mhm.
So I haven't used any other name. Not saying that there aren't any other names. That's the name I've used. That's the name that's worked my entire life. That's the name I've used to rebuke demonic entities, which do exist. Somebody on Facebook the other day said, I don't believe in demons. I was like, wow,
Oh.
wow, wow, wow,
Mm.
wow, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
You don't believe in them, but they believe in you,
Uh-huh.
and they will indwell in you, and they will, and don't believe in witches, don't believe in vampires, but they're real.
Mhm.
Hollywood is full of vampires. What do vampires do? They drink blood.
Mhm.
So that's my spiel for this evening.
Oh, most definitely. And like when you're talking about Jesus, I mean, I wasn't even had never even remembered that patent. It took me waking up, and I really do believe Jesus was saying, "Hey, the patent, hello." And that really saved me in some way. It was maybe 4 years too late, but still better
But
late.
is it ever really too late? Do you know what
No,
I mean?
because there's a saying that says, "My God is not in a hurry, but he's never late."
Right. He's right on time. And,
Mhm.
had I, what, people are like, well, why did you go through all that torture? Who is the God of
Mhm.
this world? It would be the satanic factions or Draco reptilians, which are possibly with the Greys controlling the earth, which that's a whole nother story. But, um, when, who's to say what timing is right? Why did I go through those things? So I
Mhm.
can be here right now telling you there is hope,
Mhm.
there is a way, there is recovery. And then when you start recovering your own memories, which many in the psychiatric field will say they're false memories, when you start recovering these, and you start recovering yourself, and then you start speaking out, you will get targeted. The truth is expensive, but nobody wants to pay for the truth. They want to pay for lies, and they drink it like
Mhm.
sand. But if
Mhm.
you the reason why we go through this life is we're witnesses, and the whistleblowers are the ones trying to tell you, research, open your eyes, and see,
Mhm.
see with new eyes, and go back and see all the lies that you've been told throughout history. Open your eyes and see. When I asked God, what should I call my company, when I had an orchestra leader ask me to be his agent, he said, call it Shepard Entertainment Endeavors. And I was like, oh, I like that. The
Mhm.
acronym is C. God
That's
does
really
things for a
cool.
reason, which we
Mhm.
don't know what that reason is. You won't know. So I've always done what he told me to do,
Mhm.
because I knew his voice. And we all have journeys. and everyone's journey is different. My mission, not your mission. Hopefully, the grand scheme of the mission is for the benefit of mankind and enlightenment.
Mhm.
That is the mission.
Mhm. Most definitely. I'd like to have you come back on the show.
Definitely. You know, my evenings are good because I'm working now. The show we're doing Monday through Friday on Rumble. It's called Dark Outpost, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday, and then we're picking up pre-records on Saturday. So if you think you might want to even be on the show, you have some information to disclose, please contact me. Again, my number, text my number. I won't answer unless you're in my contacts, is 619-779-9771.
Excellent. Hey, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here in the future with Penny L.A. Shepard and other exciting guests in the future. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you very much for having me.
Definitely.